Hello! Read it here. Today we're going to read a story from our /Entitle parents. Now, for our first story. We're having a sixth kid we can't afford, so we expect you to give us your college fund. I am F19 and my parents' second child. I have 3 brothers, 21, 13, and 7, and a sister, 16. We grew up poor, and our parents were often dependent on financial help from relatives, friends, etc. for raising us. This is because even though my dad has a mediocre job and my mom doesn't work, they just kept on popping out one kid after another. My parents are very religious and believe that children are a gift from God. Personally, I think that's total BS. My parents' reproductive choices wouldn't bother me if it hadn't caused mine and my siblings' lives to turn to shit. While growing up, we never had new clothes or toys. We had to accept handouts from family members who were better off. We never went out or did anything fun. To top it off, we were well aware that the rest of the family looked down on us for constantly asking for handouts. Now, my older brother and I have managed to get into good colleges and are looking forward to a future that would be better than our parents' lives. He and I were staying at our parents' place for a while due to the COVID-19 lockdown. One morning, my parents called all 5 of us into the living room. Mom said she had great news. The smile that was forming on my face died a quick death when she said, "We're pregnant." I lost my temper. I asked them how they could be so stupid and irresponsible. Do they not have enough financial troubles already that they have to bring in another mouth to feed? My older brother tried to calm me down, but I was livid. After a lifetime of scarcity, because of my parents' stupidity, they still hadn't learned their lesson. I asked them how they planned to provide for the kid. My dad told me I would have to give up the money our great uncle had left me. He had left all 5 of us some money which only we could access when we turned 18. I said hell no. That money would help pay for my college expenses. He called me selfish for not being there for family. I told them if they couldn't provide for the kid, they should get an abortion. My mom started crying and called me a heartless monster. Dad told me he was disgusted with me. I told them there was no way I was going to pay for their stupidity, and the only thing I would be willing to pay for is a termination. What I was really worried about was my siblings' lives getting even worse. My older brother and I have escaped our parents' clutches, but the others, especially my younger sister, will be expected to help take care of this baby. No teenager deserves to have their adolescence ruined by diapers of screaming baby. I know what it's like, as I had to go through that. It was expected of me to be an unpaid nanny to my younger brothers and sister. My older brother could go out with his friends and have fun, but I had to stay home and help give baths and feed the toddlers. I decided to get some family members involved so they could talk some sense into my parents. I called my mom's maternal cousin. She's one of my favorite people. When I told her that mom and dad were having another kid, she reacted with what? Again? I told her everything and how they expected me to hand over my inheritance. She said she was going to speak to my parents and told me not to sign over anything. I promised her I wouldn't. Of course I won't. I also called 2 of my first cousins, one of whom is an accountant, so she could explain to my parents how much of a financial liability this baby is going to be and try to convince them to either abort or give it up for adoption. I moved out of my parents' home a few days ago. I was only going to stay there till the lockdown was relaxed, but I just can't bear to listen to my mom's nagging about how this baby is a blessing and that I want to kill it. I moved into a friend's basement for a minimal rent. My mom's cousin paid them a visit about a week ago and tried to tell them they weren't doing this child any favors by bringing it into a life of poverty. My mom was very rude to my aunt and told her that a woman who chose to remain barren will never understand a mother's love. My aunt never wanted kids, nor had any. One of the reasons she's my fave. My dad told her to get out. Aunt told me there was nothing she could do, but she did try. I didn't blame her. The cousin tried to explain the economic impact this kid would have, and my mom cried about how everyone was trying to take away her baby. WTF? The intervention didn't do shit. So now I've decided to cut contact with my parents. I just can't watch my family slide further and further into a hellhole. I'll be maintaining contact with my sister, 16, just to make sure my parents can't brainwash her. My older brother is going to stay in touch with all of them, which is a good thing, as he can act as a link between me and the other siblings if my parents ever forbid them from talking to me. Otherwise, I'm done with these people. Yesterday afternoon, I got a call from my older brother. He told me that my mom has miscarried. This is hardly surprising as she's in her 40s. I felt a huge wave of relief wash over me. My siblings' lives would not be worsened by my parents' insistence on adding another mouth to feed on an already tight budget. My sister would not be asked to give up her inheritance so they could have money for their new baby. My brother told me my mom had been crying, and while I did feel bad for her, I was still glad to hear about the miscarriage. I feel like we all dodged a huge bullet. Bro asked me to move back in for a while to help comfort my mom. I told him I wasn't going to move in because 1, my college would reopen in a few days, and 2, I'm done with all the family drama. However, I did agree to come visit my mom, if only out of courtesy. In the evening, I went over to my parents' place. I took chocolate chip muffins for my mom, which I know she likes. My sister greeted me at the door and told me mom had been in bed all day. After greeting my dad, I went into their bedroom. Mom was sitting up on the bed. I told her I was sorry about what happened and placed the muffins on the bedside table. She looked at me angrily, then threw the muffins at me. She screamed at me that she had lost her baby because of me. She said I had caused her stress, and it's what caused her to miscarry. She said I was probably glad her baby was dead, which is true, but of course I didn't point that out. She called me a witch and said I had wished this upon her. She was screaming so loudly, all my siblings and my dad came rushing to the bedroom. She yelled at me to get out. I did. I hugged my older brother and sister. Before I left, my DD told me my mom was right, that my cruelty caused her to miscarry. I told him that was a grossly unfair accusation and reminded him that at mom's age, it was quite common to miscarry. Then I walked out. I'm so done with my parents and their stupidity. I can only hope they won't try for another kid. Now, for our second story. Entitled parents try to pin me out to an entitled kid and try to ruin my life when I don't let them. This all happened around 10 years ago and takes place over the course of the absolute worst months of my life. I had just turned 18 at the time, and thanks to my mom's gambling addiction, we lost the house that I had lived in my entire life. Almost right after we lost the house, a family friend offered to let us stay at her house with her family, since her and her husband had a few extra rooms. We moved into their very large house, and at first things were great. The family consisted of the entitled parents and their entitled kid who was the same age as me. All of them were understanding and nice at first, offering to let me and my mom stay for as long as it would take for us to get back on our feet. Entitled mother even got me my first job working as a volunteer at a bingo hall. It was all under the table kind of money, but I didn't care since it was money in my pocket that my mom couldn't/wouldn't provide me. Entitled parents have been family friends for a very long time and are absolutely enamored with the idea of me and entitled kid getting together, and have been ever since we were little. They constantly made comments like, "Look at the beautiful couple, you two look so great together," or "We'll give you lovebirds some privacy," whenever we were in the same place together. Despite me stating several times that I didn't like him in that way, they were determined to try to get us to work like some kind of arranged marriage. I think that really fed into entitled kid's ego, because about a month into my stay there is when the first incident happened. We were walking down the hall when he smacks my ass from out of nowhere. I really freaked out and went off on him, yelling, cursing, and giving him a few shoves. Our parents came upstairs to see what all the yelling was about, and we end up getting separated. I tell my mom what happened, and she responds by telling me it wasn't a big deal and to not rock the boat while we were living there. Entitled kid eventually gives some half-assed apology to me at dinner, and his dad made some joke about how he's relieved that he's finally taking an interest in girls, since they were starting to think he was gay. Things proceeded to escalate from there. Any chance entitled kid got he would make lewd comments or find some way to grope me. Every time I went to his parents, it was always hand waved away as boys will be boys, or "You probably didn't mean it that way," that he was a really sweet guy deep down and I should get to know him better. On one occasion, entitled dad told me that I should be flattered. My mom was content to not do anything, enjoying the freeloading that got to feed her addiction too much and telling me to stop playing hard to get. One day, entitled kid puts a hand down my shirt as I'm sitting on the couch, and I started yelling at him about how I'm sick of him doing stuff like this and to never do it again, But he gave me the most terrifying glare and told me, "Shut up, you live in my house." After that, I was so terrified of being alone with him that I would stay after school for as long as I could until I was asked to leave, and if I ever had to go back to the house for any reason. I would just hide in my room with the door locked and wouldn't come out until I knew other people were around, since I didn't know if one day he was just going to force himself on me. Fast forward a few months, and I'm told, not asked, that I'm going with Entitle Kid as his date to his senior prom, which is in a week. Entitled parents are super excited and tell me that we'll have the whole house to ourselves that night after we come back from the dance. I very quickly shut that down and tell them that I'm not going because of how Entitled Kid treats me, and entitled parents spend the rest of the day doing everything they can to compel me. First, they try telling me money isn't an issue, how they'll pay for my dress and ticket. When that doesn't work, they try to guilt trip me, telling me how they asked me for so little, and how this is the least I can do, and how much Entitled Kid would love it. Finally, my mom eventually hears about it after she comes home from the casino, and she's pissed. She tells me how I need to go, how it's such a big opportunity for the both of us, and how I need to tell the entitled parents that I changed my mind. I refuse, and the day after Entitled Kid's prom is over, entitled parents sit me and my mom down for a talk. They start implementing new rules about how they now expect us to pitch in for all the amenities, how we're expected to buy our own food, and how they're going to start charging us for rent. Before all this, they were very adamant about us not paying for anything, wanting us to save money to get back on our feet. Even without my mom spending half or all of her checks at the casino, there was no way for us to afford what they were asking, and they subsequently gave us a month to find our own place and move out. We ended up moving out to live in a sketchy neighborhood with some guy my mom was dating, whom she'd met at the casino. My mom blamed me for the entire thing, saying I blew a golden opportunity for both of us. How I basically threw away a great future that was all laid out for me because I wouldn't dance and put out. That cut me pretty deeply, and I still get angry thinking about it to this day. A few months later, I graduated, but my mom didn't show up to the ceremony. I come back to the house, and all my stuff is sitting on the curb next to the trash, and have been thoroughly picked through. I found out my key doesn't work anymore, and nobody is picking up their phone. End up waiting till about 3 in the morning for them to come back from the casino, and my mom tells me in so many words that I'm my own now. Nothing I say changes her mind, and I eventually pack what little of my stuff is left into my car. I spent the next month or 2 couch surfing or sleeping in my car, while trying to pick up as many days as I could at work. Eventually, I managed to save up enough to move into my first apartment with a roommate. I haven't spoken to my mom or the entitled parents since then, but recently my mom left me a voicemail asking if we could talk, since she didn't like the way we left things. Since then, she's been blowing up my phone every day. I don't plan on ever taking her call. Let's hear from the comment section. Comment 1. Jesus Christ, that was a little dark, but you did amazing by standing your ground against that douchebag and his stuck-up family. And I hope your life gets better. Comment 2. That's some titanium spine you have there. Standing up to adults who wanted you to prostitute yourself to provide a place to stay for yourself and your egg donor is hard as an adult, let alone a school student. Then the egg donor chucking you out at her first opportunity, that was just reptilian cold. I'm pretty confident the reason you're getting calls is that ED had been evicted from her den of convenience. She's looking for another place to lay her head between casino runs. Keep strong in refusing to reconnect. Hard as it will be to do now, it is going to save you heartache later. Comment 3. Tell your mother to go fuck herself and then block every means she has of trying to communicate with you. I bet that POS wants you to talk to you for money again. What she did was despicable. Now, for our third story. Entitled mom thinks her family's rules apply to everyone. Last week I was traveling for work. It had been a long 2 days of meetings, and I was exhausted. I had just arrived at the airport for my evening cross-country flight home when I got the dreaded text from the airline saying my flight was delayed 2 hours due to mechanical problems. I decided to pass the time by getting something to eat. I found an airport restaurant and sat down to order. I ordered my food and pulled my phone out of my bag to catch up on email and browse the web while waiting for my food to arrive. While I was waiting a family with a mom, dad, little girl about 5 years old, and a middle school-aged looking boy sat at a table near me. I didn't pay them much attention as I was looking at email on my phone, but then I hear the little girl exclaim in a rather loud voice, "Look, Mom, that lady is on her phone at the table." I then hear the mother reply, "Yes, she shouldn't be doing that. It is rude to have a phone at the table." I glance over and the mother says to me, "We have a rule that no phones are allowed at the table." My first reaction was to say something snarky, as exhaustion was definitely getting the better of me. But then I thought better of it and decided to be polite. I looked at the little girl and said, "We have the same rule in my family, but since I'm here alone, I'm not being rude to anyone by looking at my phone now." At this point, the son looks like he wants to crawl under the table from embarrassment, and the dad is trying to hand the mom a menu and says, "It's okay. Let's just order." I think that will be the end of it, but no. The mom says, "Obviously you have a family, so you know how important it is to follow rules. I would appreciate it if you would put away your phone," in a tone that a parent would use on a petulant teen. The little girl chimes in and says, "Yeah, you have to put your phone away. My brother can't have his phone at the table, so you can't either." I look at the little girl and say in as sweet a tone as I can muster, "Well, the great thing about being a grown-up is that I can do whatever I want, so now I'm going to keep looking at my phone," and turn back to my email. The mother sighs loudly, the teen looks even more embarrassed, and the dad again tries to get the mom to just order and leave me alone. The mom calls the waiter over and asks to be reseated. He grudgingly moves them to a different table. My food arrives, and I eat in peace, enjoying browsing Reddit. Let's hear from the comment section. Comment 1. I've had my kids say similar things while out and about. I'm the one who doesn't want to start an interaction with someone at another table. So usually I'll say something like, "Different people do things differently," or, "Well, they're an adult, so they get to do some things you can't," and try to avoid making eye contact with the person in question. Then there are times when someone is breaking more social rules, like when we've been waiting in line for something for half an hour and the kids are frustrated and some jerk cuts up toward the front, and the kids are like, "Look, that person just went right up. Why can't we?" And of course they're kids, so they say it loudly enough where half the other people in line can hear and turn to look. In those cases, I'll say something more like, "Well, not everyone follows the rules, but we do. Just because someone else acts like a bad person doesn't mean that you should too." Comment 2. God, my kids have done the same thing. "That boy over there is cursing. Am I his mother?" "Well, no, but we can hear him." "We'll go somewhere else. His parents probably let him, but it's our rules, we don't." What do I usually say? "Not your kid, not your problem." Yep. Comment 3. I remember there was a kid at my daycare who kept trying to tell us that his mom was the boss of us, and he cried when we told him she wasn't. I imagine that's who that little girl is. Comment 4. I had this happen while camping once. Older dude was the dad of a friend of a friend. We all went camping in a big group. Older dude was a big fan of get-rich-quick schemes and was a total man-child. We all went down to the river to go cliff jumping, and he tags along. He pulls a pan out of his backpack, and as we all head to the water says, "Hey, kids, we have to pan for gold first. This stretch of river is the ideal spot. You can swim once you find at least 5 grams. I looked at him and said, "Dude, you may be Michael's dad, but you aren't my dad. You can't tell me what to do." And I kept going. Everyone kept going to the cliff, except for Michael and his child dad. I felt bad for Michael, but fuck you, I'm not panhandling for gold while I'm on vacation in New Hampshire 13. I'm doing something exciting like jumping off a 30-foot cliff into a 35-degree river. Now, for our 4th story. Entitle mother tells me I can't use sign language at home because she won't learn it. So I've been told to share this. Not sure if anyone will be interested. This is about my adoptive mother. My adoptive parents are British citizens who moved to my country in the EU. They adopted me actually expecting mental disabilities, but I was just profoundly deaf. You would think that would be easier. So I grow up, I get enrolled in deaf schools where I learn sign language. But my mother decides it's too hard for her to learn sign language and actually bans me from using it in the house. I had to mime or point at things until I could start writing, upon which I carried around a notebook everywhere. If I did try to sign, I was called disrespectful for not including her in the conversation. In a strange way, this made my written language skills very good, as well as my lip reading skills, which many deaf people have challenges with. It was very difficult and upsetting living with her. My adoptive father was nice, but he just listened to whatever she wanted, so he became a bad parent too. I went to university and limited contacting them. The one time I tried to visit them for the holidays, I returned to a house with a stranger family. My adoptive parents had moved back to Britain without telling me. Who does that? Let's hear from the comment section. Comment 1. The one time I tried to visit them for the holidays, I returned to a house with a stranger family. Why would they even adopt a child in first place just to treat it this way? Like seriously, how much of an asshole does someone have to be to act this way towards their child? Comment 2. Some families adopt for praise/attention from their social/religious group. They use them for appearances, but don't really care about the child's best interest. Comment 3. My parents did this and loved to brag about how it was God's amazing plan for them to whoever would listen. My adoptive brother was very messed up and molested me and my sisters. When my parents found out, they didn't get outside help. We didn't get therapy or counseling. They just told us to lock the door at night. Then my dad gets pissed that I'm a depressed teenager. I'm ruining his image of having a perfect Christian family. My siblings and I all suffered from some level of CPTSD from the whole experience. But hey, at least they were following God's plan. Am I right? Comment 4. I completely commiserate with you. I cut all contact 20 plus years ago and have been much better since. But I had an eerily similar experience with my adoptive father and his sons, while the mom shushed every avenue imaginable, including pulling me out of public school. That was my escape. And homeschooling me so I couldn't spread lies about such a good and godly family. When confronted years later during therapy, her exact, burned in my brain for eternity, answer for not protecting me was, "What did you expect me to do? Leave my husband, go on welfare, and get a job?" No thank you, girlie. My psychiatrist's answer was one simple word reply, yes. And to Opie, I'll be your pseudo-adoptive big sister if you'd like. I'm half deaf myself, just waiting for new hearing aids, took ASL back when I was not yet a teen. But I'd be honored to be an honorary big sister. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see more.